Okay, this is a little behind the scenes look for those that are interested. The lace that I use, this came from my mom. Every time I can use lace in a project, or her trims in a project, it helps me to honor and remember her, and it makes me so happy. So that's where the lace came from. But I wanted to show you a couple of little, I guess, paper engineering things that I did. So I made this little pocket. You can actually see my little measurements down there. It's 3/8 of an inch, and it's just a little box pocket. I think I have a clip I can insert right here to kind of show you how I did that. Okay, for this tag, my intention was to make this sewing machine ephemera piece a little tuck spot on the tag to house my little lace sample. But as you can see, that lace sample is kind of thick, and it won't really, a tuck spot's not really going to work very well. So what I did was make a little pocket for the back of the sewing machine. I've got my little pocket. You know, it was a rectangular piece of paper, and then I cut off all the little notches after scoring. And my pocket is the pocket itself is 1.5 inches wide and 1 3/8 inches tall. But that, you know, it just depends on the size of your ephemera piece. So I just kind of eyeballed it with, made it work so that it would fit on the back of that piece of that sewing machine. And then each of my little gussets or side parts, folding parts to make the pocket, those are all 3/8 of an inch to make it thick enough. And then that, you know, because that has to be 3/8 of an inch to fit that in there, that's why I made each of these little the bindings between each of the hinges. Those are all 1/2 inch, so that'll fit right in there, even with the very thick tag, the dimensional tag. I'll glue the pocket to the, and then when the lace is taken out, that's what it looks like. And so, all right. And then the little book nook, I use the tunnel effect and tunnel cards. And Kerryanne English actually has a freebie, a Christmas freebie called Shabby Nativity, and she did it's a free tunnel card for Christmas if you want to check that out. I had to do the dimension a little bit different than you would on a card. These are just kind of standalone gussets. And I think I have a photo I can show you my measurements and kind of show you what I did, and I'll insert that here. And then with this is actually a holds closed with a magnet since it's a little flip out. So I put a magnet behind the beautiful things sentiment, and then I also put a magnet inside the pocket. And here's some more of my mom's lace. And then this paper creation took a lot of thought. I initially thought to do I wanted to pull some treasure out of the trinket box, and I initially thought maybe I'll do a little waterfall effect. I've never made a waterfall card or an insert into a journal or album, but I thought I could try that. I thought of a flat just to pull out, but I really needed it to have dimension. And then I thought back to the little box that I made for the sewing machine. I thought, well, I'm going to do the same thing here. So that's what I did. I created a little box, and then I cut the lid off the trinket box. Here's my measurements for the box itself. And then here's how I did the lid. So you can see the box there inside the trinket box. You can see a little peek of it on the side. And then the lid, I kind of covered up the magnet with some little cut aparts, but there's a magnet there and a magnet behind these florals on the tag, and that is what holds the lid in place, the little magnet. And then of course I put my little treasures in there. I put them on velvet ribbon so that it's kind of like a velvet lined trinket box. And then I wanted to show you a little note that came with the kit. It says the little brass key, right there it says brass key, was found inside a tiny trinket box. So I needed a brass key, and I only had this color. So I actually colored this to make it the gold. Let me grab what I used. I used Deco Color Premium Prime oil-based opaque metallic paint marker, and I literally just colored it like you would a piece of paper, but you just colored it, and it did really well. I did another, it's all silver, and I colored it gold, and it's not rubbing off, it's staying very well. So that's a little trick. And here's a kind of a half and half, so you can see how this started out silver and I started coloring it gold. So that's just a little trick. If you have silver charms and you really need gold ones, you can use that. I got this at Office Supply in the USA, which they currently don't have supplies right now because of a fire in their warehouse, but I'm sure it can be found other places. And then of course I did my little mouse. I put her in a little teacup, gave her another hiding spot. And so that's that one. And then this one is just a hidden pocket. These are fussy cuts from the collection, and I glued this one on top of a second one that's exactly the same, only gluing around the edges so that inside, and then I cut a little slit there so that inside it's not glued. This paper can slip in and out. So it's a little hidden pocket. And this album is 3.5 inches wide by 5 inches tall at the tallest part. And these are tags that come with the kit, and that's a normal size tag. I don't have a lot of experience with journals, and they can be intimidating. And so what I've learned to do with all my little projects, and I think Kerryanne mentioned this, is just to kind of sketch it out and try it. So I just get scrap paper, and I wanted to figure out where my pages were going to go. I practiced the hinge to see, will this work? And I would put the real tags here to see, just to practice. Okay, does my little clock with the mouse in it fit? Does the little sewing machine fit? And then this gave me enough confidence to try the actual project itself. Okay, I think that's all the behind the scenes inside of the album. I will insert a clip here to kind of show how I did the binding. All right, to show you how I'm doing the spine, this is the front cover, and that's the one, it's attached to one hinge, and then there's a picture of all the other hinges where the pages will be added. But this is my little cheat sheet. I determined what I would need, the width I would need based on how many pages I would have, and then I measured the height of the portion of the tag that I would be attaching to the spine, and that was 3.5 inches. So I cut a piece of paper that was 4 inches by 3.5 inches. And then here's my cheat sheet of scoring. You score, turn your onto the scoreboard at the 4-inch side, and you score at 1/4 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and so on. Those are all the measurements, and you can take a screenshot or pause that if you need to. And these are your page hinges. So those are the measurements. I also put little notes about where I will glue. So these edges are where the front cover and the back cover will attach. So glue on both sides of those. And then these are the actual hinges that say glue glue. So for every 1/4 inch score mark, you're going to glue the 1/4 inch to the 1/4 inch. And then you're going to leave a 1/2 inch. That's not going to have any glue. That's your space to allow for tags. Scoring is done. And now I'm going to grab my glue. I'm going to start with these interior hinges rather than the front and back covers, because I don't really want to do those yet. So the two. So basically it's the 1/4 inch gussets or hinges that are being glued together. The 1/2 inch width is where your tags are sitting. So I would do all of that gluing. Now you have your spine with the hinges. Okay, so there's the hinge for your front cover, the hinge for your back cover, and then these are the hinges for the interior pages of your book. So it looks like this when done. And it will look like this, is what it will look like once it's all glued together. And then that has actually the cover attached as well. So that's a hinge, 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 back cover hinge, front cover hinge. Okay, you need something to kind of cover that. So you're going to have a second spine, and that'll be your pretty spine. That sheet is going to be 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches tall again, because you want it to be the same height as the other, and it's 2.5 inches, and then you're going to score it at 1/4 inch and 2.25 inches, and those are the two little pieces that will attach to the ends to attach your cover and your back. Okay, so that's your spine. So the hinges of the spine and the spine itself is kind of what I'm calling it. And it'll sit like that when done. This is the smooth binding that will cover up those hinges. So there's your hinges. And then this is the piece that kind of covers them. Which it's covered up with lace now, but that's that. And you can see, so you can see this is that back piece. And then these that are kind of more moving around in there, those are the hinges. So you attach your pages to each hinge. So a tag on each side and glue them together to create the pages. And I think I have a little clip I'll insert here that explains that a little bit more. All right, I'm moving right along with my little tag-shaped mini album, and you can see how thick my pages are, and that's why, as I showed you earlier, when I made my hinges, I added that 1/2 inch space between each hinge to allow for these bulky interactive pages that I have. And I also wanted to show you that on the front cover and the back cover, I'm using this chipboard. This just came out of some sort of packaging, but it's not pliable. It doesn't bend. It's pretty pretty sturdy. So I'm going to use that for my front and back covers. So, and after I attach those, I'll try to show you me gluing the last page on just so you can kind of see that. Alright, so I have glued the back, glued on that chipboard. I glued a tag on each side. And again, this is my back cover. I'm going to sandwich the back cover and the little binding attachment piece right there between the chipboard and another tag. So then it will hold once it's glued like that. Now I've got to line up my hinge, yeah, that is a little hinge attachment onto the back cover, and then also line up a tag to hold it, the hinge in place onto the back cover. Let's see, I want it to sit up straight. This is not easy to show, and it's also it's very fiddly to do this, so hopefully this helps, but if not, you can fast forward. Let's see. I think that's good. I hope that's good. Just make sure like my little last page fits in there well. It looks like it does. So I'm going to press that down. So this is the hinge piece binding and also the spine cover binding. Gluing both of those into place. Okay. I think that's good. And now I'm going to try to glue that tag back down. Leaving the space for the journaling card. So I'm not going to glue. I'm going to leave that space in the middle empty here for the journaling card to slip in. And that tag's purpose really is to serve as a pocket, but also to hold that hinge in place. So there's my little journal card. It does slip in easily, so that's good. So I'm going to just glue my final page back down. It'll totally cover up that tag. So, all right.